facilities.
Thanks, Jessica. So again, I'm Mike Dark. I'm a staff attorney at California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform. Our constituency is really people in long-term care. So that's both nursing homes and assisted living facilities in California, but a lot of these issues sort of are nationwide in terms of their scope. And one thing that we have seen, I think you've all seen during the pandemic, is the way that the virus has really put a spotlight on inequities, structural problems that have existed long before COVID hit America. Certainly things like disparities in healthcare, but also crucially now, the way that people with disabilities, the way that people who are residents of long-term care can get disenfranchised from participating in our political process. And there is a terrible and a tragic irony if the people who have been most affected, most killed, suffered the most misery from this virus would be unable to participate in an election which is above all a referendum on our response to this public health crisis. And there are reasons for us to be concerned that that is exactly what's going to happen unless we act swiftly now. The problem really has to do with the fact that even before we got to the issue of voting, we at CANHR were fielding hundreds, maybe thousands of calls from residents with two main kinds of problems. One is they could no longer see any visitors at all, not even often through a window, certainly not in person. And a related issue, which is they couldn't leave these facilities. Now, they're not prisoners, but what facilities have been saying now during the crisis is that if you, a nursing home resident, want to leave to go to the library, even in some cases to go see your physician, you can't come back in. We will bar the door and we will, or minimally, we will ensure that you have to go through a 14-day quarantine before you can rejoin the resident population. And as a result, many residents throughout the state are effectively prisoners inside these facilities. And the implications for the right to vote are hugely consequential. Certainly, it means that going to vote at a polling place becomes virtually impossible if you can't leave and be readmitted to your room. That means you may be homeless if you try to vote. An important related point is even if you want to vote by mail and if you are in a facility, most likely you're going to need an authorized representative who you designate to come in, take your vote and deposit it. That's not going to happen if visitors are not permitted into facilities. And practically that means really all opportunities to vote are being cut off as things stand right now. And there's another sort of related point I don't want to forget about, which is that a lot of people don't realize that just because you have a cognitive impairment, whether it's dementia or Parkinson's or you are post-stroke, you do not lose your right to vote. You only lose your right to vote if you have been declared incapacitated by a court. And so people with cognitive impairments should still feel like they have skin in this game, and they do. Now, what's important to understand is that, at least in theory, facilities have an obligation to facilitate the residents' rights to vote. They have no financial interest to do so because it costs money. And there are almost no consequences, at least so far, if they don't make the kinds of changes that we need to see in order for voting to take place. What CANHR has been doing is working with the California Department of Public Health, urging that the department issue an all facilities letter, which would go not just to nursing homes, but to other healthcare facilities in California, reminding them of the requirement that they facilitate the right to vote, which may mean designating visitors with appropriate PPE and appropriate safety precautions to be able to come in to facilitate voting by mail, for example. But unless someone actively intervenes to make the facilities do this, they will not do it. And another important thing to remember is authority during this pandemic is strangely split between county public health authorities and state health authorities. And so you may have the State Department of Public Health saying one thing, but your local county department saying something completely different regarding visitation or regarding access to polls. So it is important in trying to work on this issue to work with both counties and with state authorities. We have a little bit of time to do this, but not much. And so what we are recommending, what we are doing at CANHR is working hard with state authorities, with county authorities,